Hello YouTube, this is Darth Judicar22 coming at you with another Versus Series video. I will admit this video was a little bit of a challenge to make. I wanted Darth Nihilus to be the combatant from the beginning, but picking his opponent was a challenge. In the end, I decided on an opponent that would be difficult for anyone to beat in any era, not just Nihilus. And I think I came up with a pretty unique idea. So without further ado, let us begin Darth Nihilus versus Darth Sidious. The man who would become the feared Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Nihilus, was born almost 4,000 years before the Battle of Yavin on an unknown planet. A soldier who fought in the Mandalorian Wars. Over the course of this galaxy-spanning war, this future Dark Lord of the Sith lost everything that he ever cared about. His family, his friends, even his very will to live, but he still managed to live to see the end of the war. While he was at the Battle of Malachor V, he did manage to survive the activation of the mass shadow generator that wiped out the majority of both the Mandalorian and Republic forces. Trapped on the ruined planet by mass shadows, Darth Nihilus was adversely affected by the planet around him, as well as the mass shadows themselves, which manifested in an all-consuming, unrelenting hunger that he felt. However, it was during this time on Malachor V that Darth Nihilus utilized his ability to feed on the energy of other people for the first time, temporarily sating his hunger. The man he once was died that day on Malachor V, and all that was left was the bitter remains that would become the man known as Darth Nihilus. He was later found by Darth Traya, who took him to the Trayus Academy in order to train him in the dark side, along with Darth Sion, and he became the third member of the Sith Triumvirate, Darth Nihilus, the Lord of Hunger. Traya taught Darth Nihilus to utilize his hunger to devour entire planets, making him even more powerful than ever before, and she began to become more and more afraid of her own apprentice. As his power grew, Darth Nihilus, along with Darth Sion, became disillusioned about Darth Traya's plan to destroy the Jedi, and instead wanted to destroy them sooner, as opposed to Darth Traya's plan to wait longer and draw out their destruction. In 355 BBY, Nihilus and Sion joined forces in order to overthrow Darth Traya and take control of the Sith Triumvirate and its empire. Ambushing her in the core of the Trayus Academy, Nihilus and Sion caught the older Sith off guard and locked up her Force abilities, preventing her from using them and casting her into exile, once again plunging the Sith Order into chaos. And so Darth Nihilus traveled to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, seeking out and feeding upon even more powerful sources of the Force. Utilizing this, he managed to target and take out many members of the Jedi Order, along with Darth Sion, becoming what would be known as the First Jedi Purge. However, even as his power grew, Darth Nihilus's body began to fail him as he began to erode and was being consumed by his own power and hunger. In order to stop himself from dying, Darth Nihilus consumed his own body and bound his spirit to the robes and mask that he wore, making him in essence a Force ghost that still walked among the living. Later, Nihilus was drawn to the Miraluka planet Qatar, where a trap had been laid by the Jedi Master Atris. Once there, he overwhelmed the very Force on the planet, devouring everything that was connected to it at any point. He managed to wipe out most of the surviving Jedi, including numerous Jedi Masters. However, when he traveled down to the planet's surface, he found something he did not expect. He discovered a single survivor, a Miraluka female named Visas Mar, who had somehow managed to survive his attack on the planet. He then took Mar aboard his flagship, the Ravager, and made her his shadow hand, his personal assassin, as well as his Sith apprentice. Through this, the two developed a powerful bond through the Force, which allowed one to strengthen the other. Darth Nihilus was eventually killed by the Jedi exile Mitra Surik aboard his ship the Ravager in orbit of the planet Telos 4. However, Nihilus' spirit survived the battle over Telos, and he was eventually found on Korriban with his holocron by Darth Krayt, who consulted with him and other Sith Lords in order to try and gain power over the Yuuzhan Vong parasites that were eating away at his body. But Darth Nihilus was far from the only Sith Lord whose reign of terror almost wiped out the Jedi once and for all. The eldest son of Kasinga Palpatine, Darth Sidious, was born 82 years before the Battle of Yavin on the planet Naboo. The young Palpatine was extremely ambitious and intelligent, believing that he and his family, the noble House Palpatine, was worthy of having great power on Naboo and in the galactic community itself. While he was a student at Theed University, Palpatine was approached by a Mune named Hiko Damask, who offered to become his mentor and began teaching the young Palpatine about the galaxy as a whole. After only a little bit of pushing by Damask, Palpatine killed his own family after they had forbidden him from talking to the Mune, after which Damask revealed himself to be Darth Plagueis, the Dark Lord of the Sith. Plagueis then took Palpatine on as his apprentice, naming him Darth Sidious. However, Darth Plagueis intended to use Darth Sidious only as a figurehead in galactic politics, hoping to have achieved immortality by that point and ruling forever as the eternal Dark Lord of the Sith. Towards the end of his training, Darth Sidious took on a young male Night Brother who would become his first apprentice, Darth Maul. Over time, Darth Sidious gained more and more power and influence, finally gaining a seat in the Galactic Senate as the senator from Naboo. Plagueis and Sidious went on to instigate the Naboo crisis in the hopes of garnering sympathy for Sidious as he made his bid for the chancellorship against Valorum. However, Valorum made the unexpected move of commissioning the Jedi Council to send two Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn, in order to negotiate on the behalf of the Naboo people. When the Naboo Queen Amidala arrived on Coruscant at the height of the crisis, Palpatine recognized that he had an opportunity to take the leadership of the Galactic Republic from Valorum. He convinced her of Valorum's corruption and to push for a new Chancellor to be elected through a vote of no confidence. Nominated by Senator Orn Freetal, Sidious in his guise as Palpatine was seen as the middle ground between the loyalists and the corrupt politicians that had been squabbling over the power in the Senate. This mixed with the sympathy vote towards Naboo's plight, along with the influence of Darth Plagueis, led to Sidious becoming Chancellor almost in a landslide. By this point, Sidious had grown tired of living in the shadow of Darth Plagueis. Calling the Elder Sith Lord to Coruscant, Palpatine got the Elder Mune drunk, and after taunting him incessantly, he finally killed Darth Plagueis, his mentor, ascending to the title of Dark Lord of the Sith. During the first 8 years of his term as Chancellor, Sidious was responsible for the formation of the Red Guard. This controversial group served as Sidious's personal guard, acting only under his orders and answering to no one else. It was also during this period that he encountered the future Grand Admiral Thrawn, who had attacked the outbound flight mission. He then took on Count Dooku as an apprentice and began laying the groundwork for what would be known as the Clone War. As the threat from the Separatists became more and more apparent, Sidious was granted emergency powers by the Galactic Senate. He first used these powers to form the Grand Army of the Republic from the clone army designed by the Kaminoans on his orders, and used them to attack the Separatists on the planet Geonosis, beginning the Clone War. As the war progressed, Darth Sidious's power grew as he tightened his grip on the Republic, becoming more and more like a despotic leader than a champion of democracy, as he had once claimed to be. And at the same time, through his apprentice Count Dooku, Darth Sidious controlled the Separatist movement as well, effectively controlling both sides of the Clone Wars. At the end of the Clone War, Darth Sidious executed the Grand Plan, the 1,000-year plan that had been laid by Darth Bane himself in preparation for the ultimate destruction of the Jedi and the Republic. He began the Great Jedi Purge with Order 66, the order given to all clone troopers in the army in order to kill their Jedi commanders. At the same time, he ordered his new apprentice, Darth Vader, to lead the assault along with the 501st on the Jedi Temple, which ended in the deaths of almost all the Jedi and younglings that were inside. It was then that Darth Sidious dismantled the Galactic Republic, building in its place the Galactic Empire, and then he declared himself its first emperor. But Sidious's reign was not to last forever. In 4 ABY, he was killed by Darth Vader on the bridge of the second Death Star. However, Darth Sidious's spirit managed to survive, and he was eventually killed when his last clone body was destroyed and his spirit along with it, after he attempted to possess the young Anakin Solo. At the time of his death, Darth Sidious was the greatest Sith Lord of all time, and his influence was felt long after his death. First, I will compare their physical attributes and handicaps. Darth Nihilus was originally a human male in his 30s or 40s. This brings us to a major problem of using Nihilus in a video like this. He lacks a physical body, which means he cannot be truly gauged in terms of physical ability. However, it is also worth mentioning that his lack of a physical body gives him high endurance. He is able to outlast in a battle because he can survive massive strikes against his body, even lightsaber strikes that would otherwise kill a person. As strong as he might be, however, Darth Nihilus does have a weakness. His hunger, if not fed, will weaken him considerably, a disadvantage that any enemy might be able to take advantage of. For the sake of fairness, I will be considering Darth Sidious as he was at the end of the Clone Wars as opposed to later during the original trilogy. Darth Sidious was a human male in his late 60s at the time of the Clone Wars. Having immersed himself in the dark side for decades, Darth Sidious showed signs of force degradation from the use of the dark side that was visible mostly in the time after he defeated Mace Windu through wrinkled skin, gray skin, and yellow eyes that was common among Darksiders. Along with his advanced age, Sidious was truly not exactly in the prime of his life at the time he became the Emperor. However, that being said, Sidious also was a capable fighter in terms of lightsaber dueling. He could hold his own against several Jedi Masters, including several Council Masters, and killed 3 Jedi within seconds of fight beginning. Given this, he is capable of holding his own in a fight, but only as long as the fight doesn't last too long. And also, he is incredibly clever. He does not only use strength, but he also uses strategies, targeting weaknesses, and other things that would give him an advantage in a fight. terms of physical attributes, this is actually not that hard of a call to make. Both combatants are highly skilled and highly durable, especially given their weaknesses and that could possibly be detrimental, but they have managed to survive and even flourish. However, I'm going to have to give this one to Darth Nihilus. While he lacks a physical body, his ability to endure hits does give him a strong advantage in any fight, and I believe that this might be a deciding factor, but it probably will not be the only one. However, as the battle drags on, this will become less and less important. If they can end it quickly, yes, Nihilus might have the advantage, but Nihilus is not equipped for a prolonged fight, and that will possibly be his downfall. So in the end, he gets the advantage, but only barely. Now I will compare them as lightsaber duelists and martial artists. While Darth Nihilus's form is not confirmed, I have managed to study several videos of him fighting, and I think that I might have an idea of what he used. Along with other Versus series video makers, I believe that his primary form of lightsaber combat is Form 2 Makashi. Unlike other forms of lightsaber combat, Makashi focused almost exclusively on lightsaber dueling. Utilizing a series of flourishes and other powerful moves, Makashi was capable of fighting off many opponents, usually focusing on just one, but when it was properly applied, it could combat multiple opponents, especially if combined with other lightsaber forms. However, while looking at the videos, I believe that Nihilus may have also utilized Ataru in combat to an extent, because he was able to use acrobatics as well as other forms of combat, but this might be just a theory. A master duelist, Sidious was a practitioner of all 7 of the traditional forms of lightsaber combat. That being said, however, he did focus primarily on his force abilities, but he was still an accomplished fighter, and I believe we can narrow down his choice of lightsaber style. Jicho being the most basic lightsaber combat style, it was however built primarily to fight multiple opponents, which Sidious showed to great effect when he was attacked by the Jedi in his office and managed to kill 3 of them by breaking through their defenses and taking advantage of their weaknesses. He was also skilled in Ataru, which he used the acrobatics of in order to stay ahead of his opponents, which he used also against Master Yoda as well as the other Jedi that attacked him, and this gave him an advantage over them because he was able to move so quickly, though he was matched by Master Yoda, who also was a master of Ataru. It is also very possible that he utilized Nyman, the 6th form of lightsaber combat style, given his choice to combine lightsaber attacks and light force abilities that made him such a dangerous opponent, and also because he was able to utilize Jarkai dual blade fencing, which he utilized against Darth Maul and Savage Opress to great effect. And this makes him an extremely dangerous opponent because Nyman borrowed attributes from the other 6 forms of lightsaber combat, and he was able to build on this because he was a master of all 7 forms, and this made him a dangerous opponent when he utilized Nyman. And last but certainly not least was the highly aggressive form of Form 7 Juyo. Focusing almost exclusively on offensive attacks, Juyo was a highly aggressive, highly dangerous form of lightsaber combat, almost exclusively used by Darksiders and primarily the Sith. And this combination of combat styles made Sidious a true force to be reckoned with. This is actually a fairly easy call to make. While Nihilus has some skills with the lightsaber, he does not have the variety that Darth Sidious has as a master of all 7 lightsaber combat styles. However, it is also worth mentioning that both combatants do not put a lot of emphasis on their lightsaber skills, instead focusing on their Force abilities and using the lightsaber mostly as a defensive mechanism and occasionally as an offense. Despite this, I give Darth Sidious the advantage when it comes to lightsaber abilities and martial arts. I will now compare their abilities in the Force. Darth Nihilus was an extremely accomplished Force user, capable of reaching out across whole solar systems in order to increase his power and influence. He could feel the Force around him in individuals across a great distance, making him dangerous to the point where just having the Force made you possible target for his hunger. And that's where his trump card comes in, this powerful variation of Force Drain that he utilized in combat and in other ways to drain the very life force out of individuals, feeding on them that would sate his hunger even temporarily. But the more he fed, the more this hunger consumed him. His hunger was so great that I believe, along with many others, that if he hadn't been stopped, he would have gone to destroy all life in the galaxy, much like Darth Sidious had attempted to do. And he would have not stopped until there was nothing left. The other thing that set him apart from other Sith Lords was his dark side equivalent to Force Sever, the ability to cut someone off from the Force itself and to remove their power in the Force, basically, as he demonstrated with the help of Darth Sion on Darth Trail. He was also a practiced hand at Force Lightning, as well as Force Telekinesis, which he utilized to actually lift up entire starships, which was no mean feat, and was actually quite impressive in itself. He could also use abilities such as Force Scream, Dark Rage, and a form of Dark Healing that was extremely effective. Probably the greatest thing Darth Nihilus ever did in the Force was bound himself to his armor and his mask. His existence as a spirit means he is almost impossible to kill in lightsaber combat. He, even after his battle with Beach Surek, managed to survive and went on to live on Korriban in the form of a spirit, and it was eventually found along with his holocron by Darth Nihilus almost 4,000 years later. In many ways, Darth Sidious was the embodiment of the dark side. He even was extremely skilled in Force Lightning, being able to utilize it to powerful effect, even killing people on contact if they weren't prepared. He was also powerful in telekinesis, moving entire objects with relative ease and throwing them at his opponents, as well as doing anything just with the Force without any real trouble. He could also use the Force to augment his own speed and strength, which gave him an advantage in any combat situation, especially given his frail body. He also had some skill in the ability to manipulate midichlorians in the Force, but this was not as powerful as his master Darth Plagueis's was. He also had the ability to utilize the life force of entire populations to sustain himself, while it did not have the draining effect that Darth Nihilus's ability of Force Drain had, it was powerful. He also could create great storms in the Force, but this required lengthy concentration, and I believe that even as powerful it was, will not take any consideration in this fight. All in all, Darth Sidious was a very powerful dark side Force user and had well earned his title as the most powerful Sith in history. Now this is where we get kind of an unusual problem. While Sidious is the most powerful Sith in history, he and Nihilus both brought their abilities in the dark side to the absolute nth degree. And their trump cards, either Nihilus's Force Drain or Sidious's ability to create force storms, both require concentration that I do not think that they could do in the midst of a heated battle. So I'm not going to count them even if they are powerful, but I will take into consideration their normal abilities such as Force Lightning, Force Telekinesis, and other related abilities. And in this category, both of them are extremely skilled, especially in telekinesis, but not to be left out is their ability in Force Lightning, both of which had extremely powerful bursts of lightning. The one final note on Force Drain, it is possible that it would not work on Sidious, as Nihilus did not use it against Sion and Traya, so it is entirely possible that Sidious may know a way to defend against it. In the end, however, these two are too evenly matched in their mundane Force abilities, or as mundane as Sith get. Neither get the advantage in terms of Force ability. Now I will compare their weapons and equipment. Darth Nihilus' lightsaber was of a bulkier design with a simple one-handed hand grip, much well designed for his chosen lightsaber style and his own form. Like most Sith, Nihilus' lightsaber utilized a simple red synthetic crystal. All in all, his lightsaber followed its function, but it really was nothing to write home about. Likewise, Sidious's lightsaber followed a simple design, but was coated with electrum, which, other than having a aesthetic value, had no real bearing on the attributes of the weapon. However, it is also worth mentioning that this was not his only lightsaber. He had two other lightsabers of similar design, and he could utilize two at the same time in Jarkai dual blade fencing, as he showed in his duel with Darth Maul and Savage Opress. As such, I will be considering him as having two lightsabers, but I'm not entirely sure that he will use both of them in a duel against Darth Nihilus. To be honest, both of them have standard lightsabers. The only thing really setting them apart is Sidious's use of electrum. But that being said, Sidious does not only have one lightsaber, and he is skilled at Jarkai dual blade fencing. As such, on the factor of quantity over quality, I give Darth Sidious the advantage in terms of arms and armament. However, I do not consider this a large factor, as he may not utilize both lightsabers at the same time. And now the moment everyone has been waiting for, the verdict. Darth Nihilus was an extremely powerful dark side user. He was a capable fighter, and he was extremely dangerous with his ability of Force Drain. However, that being said, his strength is also probably his greatest weakness, and Darth Sidious was a master of exploiting his opponent's weaknesses. Sidious's use of Jarkai dual blade fencing would off-balance Nihilus, but he would likely still be able to counter Sidious's moves. In the end, I believe their fight would go down much like Sidious's fight with Yoda in Episode 3. They would start out by just wailing on each other with their lightsabers, each matching each other's moves perfectly, either with Sidious's use of his variety of lightsaber styles and Nihilus's use of Makashi and Ataru. However, because Nihilus is built more for a short duel, as the duel dragged out, his hunger would grow and he would start to weaken, giving Sidious advantages over him. I think that what would happen next is that Nihilus would attempt to use his Force Drain ability, but in the time that it would take to bring it into effect, I believe that Sidious would be able to overpower him before he could get it off, or it might not even work if he manages to succeed. In the end, Nihilus would be completely overwhelmed by Sidious's lightsaber, or his Force ability. However, there is one more thing to note about Nihilus in this fight. As powerful as he is, Sidious cannot defeat Nihilus's immortal spirit. He would survive in some form or another, much like he did in his battle against Mitra Surak. In the end, I declare Darth Sidious, Emperor of the Galaxy, the winner. I hope you enjoyed this video. I just want to say that this is only my opinion. If you are a fan of Darth Nihilus and think that he could defeat Sidious, then that's your opinion, and you are open to have it, even though I disagree. I'm kind of experimenting with new ways to do transitions and other things in this video, so I hope you enjoyed it. Also, if you have any advice, please leave it in a comment. I would appreciate it. Also, if you have any suggestions for Versus Series videos or other videos, I would appreciate it. I have a few planned, and I have something special in mind for what's going to happen in a little while. I hope you look forward to it. Also, I would like to thank my friend, the Original Game Bug, for providing this background music, and at Tommy Vision on Star Trek Online and Champions Online, who suggested to use Sidious against Darth Nihilus. That's all. I will see you next time. Bye.